Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we cover all the home teams: the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, the New Orleans Pelicans. We hope to get to Tulane and UNO as well, and a great panel to break it down. From CrestCitySports.com, Rene, Nadeau, and David Grubb are our guests tonight. A little twosome from CrestCitySports.com, which I got to tell you, if you're not checking out the website on a daily basis or following these guys on social media, you're not keeping up what's going on with sports here in New Orleans. One of the best sites we have, if not the best. So again, make it one of your favorites. Guys, welcome to the show. As always, thanks so much for coming down. Renee, good to see you again. Tell the folks about what you guys are involved in, because you're not involved with just CrestCitySports.com, but college football's not too far away. You got a lot of things going on. Tell us about it.
Well, I feel like I'm at a Pelicans game because I always sit next to David, you know, and when he turns his head, I eat some of his popcorn. But no, you know, and football never really goes away.
Right.
As we know, it just goes into a different phase. But during football season, I'm a TV color analyst for college football games. Right, CrestCitySports.com is with David and others, and work for CBS Radio for Saints games, updates, and some Pelicans games and bowl games and stuff like that. And but it's year round. You know, sports goes into a different phase. Even basketball, you know, after the season's over, there's other things, the draft and summer league and stuff. So sports is great business to be in.
Yeah, it hadn't been a dull moment in this town.
Wow.
I mean, that's for sure. You go back to the Pelicans' run in the playoffs last year, greatest season maybe in Pelican history. The Saints with their great run to the Super Bowl, which again was derailed by the no call. You get into LSU's run, obviously what they did in football. Now LSU basketball, what they've done, the Will Wade situation, which we'll get into. And of course, again, Anthony Davis forcing his way out of New Orleans, or at least attempting to, on the Pelicans side, which again, I can tell you from doing sports talk, there's not been any problem with finding something to talk about each and every day. No doubt about that. David, welcome to the show. And as always, man, Dave does a great job. He's been filling in for those of us at 1280, doing some hosting. He'll be hosting for me when I go on vacation in a couple of weeks, and doing a great job for CrestCitySports.com as well. Tell us a little bit about what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're covering all high school basketball championships, so we got that going on. You know, and college baseball picking up. So yeah, all those things are going on along with our Pelicans and Saints and LSU and Tulane coverage. So we're everywhere. And then I'm also doing some writing with the Bird Rights as well with our friend Ali Cosell, and appearing on his podcast. So I'm trying to just get myself everywhere right now.
Well, how are you enjoying the radio?
Love it. I love it. It feels natural. It feels like the extension of just what I've always wanted to do.
Right.
I'm an opinionated person, obviously, from coming on this show. And, you know, I think that's the logical next step.
Yeah, doing a great job. I
Thank
can tell you
you.
right now, absolute great job. Guys, let's start with the Saints. Let's start first about what has happened within the last 24 hours. Breeze restructures his contract, opening about $10 million in cap room. The cap hit now will be $22.7 million this year, down from $33.5. Next, he'll earn $23 million in salary and bonuses. But the cap hit next year goes up. It was $10.5 million. Now remember, Breeze is not under contract next season. But now that cap hit goes up to $21.3 million in dead money next season. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Of course, the Saints needed some cap room based on trying to be able to fill some holes. And I want to start with Mark Ingram first. I want to start with the loss because that's really been the big topic over the last couple of days. Signs with the Baltimore Ravens, 3 years, $15 million. We have not been able to find out what the guaranteed money is at this point. The Saints offered him a 4-year deal worth $17 million, but only $5 million of that was guaranteed. And of course, it really comes down to the guaranteed money for NFL players because that's all you can expect from your contract. And again, that's what they're looking for. When you look at it just on its base, you say to yourself, man, they're only about $1 million apart. And then when you look at what they gave Latavius Murray, a 4-year, $14.4 million contract, when they felt that, again, that the talks had broke off with Ingram, and about $3.6 million a year with about $7.2 million that was guaranteed, you're saying to yourself, wow, could they have come a little bit closer? Now, just a little bit of insider information, most people know this, Mark Ingram changed agents. And that was, I think that's a big thing because I think it was Joel Siegel was his agent previously and has had a relationship with Mickey Loomis. I'm not sure what kind of relationship his new agent had, but guys, they were floating out numbers of $6 to $7 to $8 million a year that Baltimore was willing to pay Ingram. We end up finding out it's nothing more than $5 million. And when you look at the Saints, they offered $4 million. Again, they weren't that far off. The intangibles. You lose him in the locker room. You lose him again in terms of that power running game. You lose him catching the ball at the backfield. And you lose him also, and again, protecting Drew Brees' blind side in the passing game. First of all, your thoughts on losing him, and your thoughts on losing him with, again, not that much difference between what the Saints were offering and what the Ravens were offering. Again, saying that we don't know what the guaranteed money was.
You know, free agency, people they overreact, and Latavius Murray comes here. He, by the way, he is a very good pass blocker. So that is something he's done. He does very, very well. And I think that's something that the Saints caught their eye. But players who are rated high in some years because it's a down year, it's a thin year, whatever it be at certain positions. And I think that's kind of the situation here. And I think the Saints kind of panicked a little bit when they weren't sure they're going to get Ingram or they're going to get caught in the crosses there, and they jumped on Latavius Murray and made sure they got somebody, something close to what they wanted. They did. It was less than $1 million. But you think of the intangibles. I really, just from my perspective, I don't really think that the new agent for Mark Ingram did a good job in this whole situation. I think he was pushing too much, overshot a little bit, if you will. And I don't know if Mark Ingram's in a better place where he is now, and I don't think the Saints are in a better. I know it was a win-win for either one there. And with free agents still, the Saints don't have those draft choices, so they have to fill some spots in free agency. They still got to go after a tight end. They still got to go after a wide receiver. Golden Tate's gone, and Dante Moncrief is a guy I had my eyes on. But there's guy they have to get an offensive lineman. So the thing you have to protect against is not overspending on a down year just because a guy is available. You don't want to get a guy who's really not going to come in and make an impact.
I get that, but this is a guy This is a guy that again is a great locker room guy, a leader on this team. He's a Peyton guy. He made himself into a really good back. And I understand he's 29, and when you start looking at Kamara in a couple years, he's going to demand big money to be able to stay here. But that might be one that when they look back, like they've done with Malcolm Jenkins and others, they say, you know what? Maybe we should have spent the extra money to keep him.
That's a Malcolm Jenkins deal. This is a Malcolm Jenkins type deal that I think they're going to regret it very, very soon. Regret it. I mean that they couldn't come together closer. And again, we don't know if the agent dug his heels in and didn't want to give in at all. So it may be a reason. It may be a situation where the Saints may have tried, but there was no give on either side.
What's your take, Dave?
Yeah, I think the difficult part here is those situations that you're just not sure about now. When it's 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, and we know Sean Payton likes to get his team into those positions and go for it. Are you going to be able to depend on the back that you're going to give the ball to now? And then also, for as great as Alvin Kamara is, he is not a power back. He's not a big guy. So this means more hits that he's going to take over the course of a season. And we saw early in the season when the Saints were struggling to get out of the gate a little bit, they couldn't control the clock with the running game because they were having trouble getting Alvin Kamara some tough yards. So I think when you lose Ingram, and you saw his value at the first half of the season, you hope you don't find yourself in a situation where you need to grind it out when the passing game just isn't going. And there were times last year when we saw that. and you need to get those yards. Can they do that? So you're trusting that you'll be able to. You trust that this replacement will. But when you're as close as the Saints have been, a call away from being in the Super Bowl, and the year before, you're a play away from being in the NFC Championship, I just think that they could have come to a short-term deal that would have given them the opportunity to let this group come back together for one more run and say, can we get over that hump and win a Super Bowl together?
You know, another part of that, Dave, is, again, when you look at Ingram, you think a guy that's a physical back, he needs carries, right? We were talking about Adrian Peterson a little bit earlier today. Ingram has really kind of developed into a back where you could put him on the sideline for a quarter or so, give him the ball, and he doesn't miss a beat. I mean, he still is physical. He goes out, he runs as hard. It wasn't like that when he got here out of the University of Alabama. You know, he kind of had to learn how to be a patient runner, had to learn how to be a more physical runner. You know, guys like Chris Ivory and others, I think they kind of pushed him into being the more physical runner. But, you know, again, we've mentioned his pass blocking ability, his ability to catch the ball at the backfield, something he didn't do really well when he first got here. But again, he's done that now. But more important to me is, and I think it's been to the locker room, which they talk about the culture a lot, is the intangible what he brings to the locker room.
Yeah, he was one of those guys. Like you say, he was one of Sean Payton's guys, but he was also one of the guys. When things, you know, everybody had a great connection with Mark Ingram. From Mike Thomas to Alvin Kamara, they all he was the hub of those skill position guys outside of the quarterback position. And I think that is something that you lose, and chemistry is important, more so in football than in other sports, because it is such a team game. And I think the other thing you worry about too is the Saints had such an advantage when they could line up and put Kamara on the outside as a receiver and Ingram in the backfield, because you had to deal with both of them. And now, are people going to be in as much fear of that backfield combination?
This just in, Teddy Bridgewater has signed a one-year deal with a maximum value of $12.5 million with the New Orleans Saints. Again, it was reported first that Miami had offered him a 2-year, $10 million deal. They brought him back. Again, that's his hometown, by the way. And they negotiated last night. The feeling out of Miami was they could come up with $1 or $2 million more, and the Saints would be out of the Bridgewater sweepstakes. The Saints had offered a $7 million deal for 1 year. So obviously they came up quite a bit to 12.5. Your thoughts?
This tells me a couple of things. First of all, as many people have speculated, I think Drew Brees is a year and a half out. When I say that, I think he's 2019 and 2020. At some point in 2020, the next guy is going to take over. And he may transition to a Teddy Bridgewater. I know he signed for 1 year. It also tells me that Teddy Bridgewater, if he's going to Miami, he's going to start in 2019, but the following year, he's going to keep a seat warm for whoever the Dolphins draft high. Right. Maybe Tua, maybe Herbert from Oregon, or maybe another quarterback. But I'm saying is that it's going to be one of those guys that he's going to be holding the seat for. And so he'd only start in Miami for a year and maybe a couple of games or so. Long range, this is the best spot for him, because I got to think, and he's had conversations, and you'd have to believe in Santa Claus if you don't think he talked to Sean Payton and Mickey and Drew, realizing what the future looks like here.
All right, before I go to Dave, your thoughts on him, skill set as a quarterback?
Teddy Bridgewater?
Yes.
He's a tough guy. That was not a true measure of what you saw at the end of the season. I mean, that was an exhibition season.
Right. He was playing behind a makeshift offensive line
tell you,
against a Carolina team that wanted to beat the Saints.
I saw him in the Sugar Bowl take some hits against Florida, and you remember that? And I'm telling you, that was he showed a lot of toughness. I never forgot that. And I mean, he got up the ground. If you remember, Dave, he took a couple of really good hits from linebackers in Florida, and that really told me a lot about him, because he's not a really overly big guy, strong guy, but he's tough. He's very smart. He can make all the throws. He is a guy who can start and bring a team to the Super Bowl. So he has all the qualities.
Your thoughts on his skill set, and then if you would, morph into, again, what you think this means for the Saints in terms of bringing this guy back. We brought about up culture before. That's a guy that, again, the team absolutely loved, and again, he was part of the culture here as well.
Well, it shows that they're committed to keeping him beyond this season. When you put $12.5 million into your backup quarterback, this is not just a one-year investment. The most important thing that Bridgewater brings, besides his character as a leader, I think, is his accuracy. Sean Payton's offense is dependent on accuracy, and Teddy Bridgewater has shown that he can be a very accurate passer when given time in the NFL. So that kind of ability, he's a tall guy, he can make the throws. I think those types of things, that's what you were looking for in that the next quarterback to come behind. You know, I know people have talked about, well, why can't Taysom Hill fill that role? He's not a passer. That's just not his role. So I think you had to get a guy who you could, if Drew Brees were to miss a game or two, you need somebody who can make plays down the field. Teddy Bridgewater can do that.
When you look at Bridgewater and you look at his situation here in New Orleans, it's unusual for a backup quarterback to be a leader in the locker room. He's been that.
I mean, I think, you know, there's a different position when you get to that level. I mean, a Tom Brady, a Drew Brees, those guys are in elevated positions in the locker room. Even if and we know Drew is a guy who works out with his teammates and is close to them, but it's still, there's a level of separation there when you get to that point. And I think what Teddy has done is be that bridge in a lot of ways. He can be a guy from the quarterback's room who's just one of the guys. And I think that helps a lot, and it helps when you have a guy who's humble and who's seen the good parts and the bad parts of the NFL. He's happy to be here, but he doesn't think that he's, you know, content to be the backup. And I think those are two great things. He bought into the culture really early, but he's also committed to working as hard as anybody.
All right, we talked about Brees, and again, the opening up some cap room. You think 2020 is about it for Brees?
I really think at 2019, I could maybe see him going into 2020. I mean, 2020. I don't know.
Right.
But
I'm sure they like to extend him to try to make sure there's not this bad money
but
here.
I could almost see him going into it with the idea that if he's not the player he thinks he is, it may be, for lack of a better description, a trial and error going into 2020. And if he's not where he wants to be because he'll be 2 years older, it might be time to give the ball to Teddy Bridgewater.
Your thoughts, Dave? How much longer with Brees?
Yeah, I think the transition has to start being made. You see that there's a little bit of fatigue as you get to the later parts of the season. So, you know, you want to keep him in position to make this one last run. I think that's what you want to do. But yeah, they've been trying to make a transition and find a person for about 5 years now. And I think now that they feel a lot more comfortable making that move.
You know, guys, I'd like to get your take on this because I've talked about it a lot on this show and on the radio show. I think that the decline in the offense last year in the second half of the season was more due to the injuries in the offensive line than to maybe Brees' skill set eroding. What are your thoughts?
Without a question. Because he's a guy in the middle, protect the middle. Max Unger does a good job. But you get guys hurt, you know, injuries, moving Pete from guard to tackle and stuff like that. And I'm not saying it's just the chemistry and everything really didn't. And losing Laribas last year really hurt a lot. That really hurt a lot. With no disrespect to Will Clapp and Cameron Tom, they just were not the player he is at this point. And that, you know, you kept moving guys there, and Armstead was less than 100% last year. So, you know, if there's any good thing came from last year, Ramczyk made tremendous strides last year. I couldn't believe before your very eyes how much better he got last year from his rookie year. And it's something to build on. But they're going to have to go in free agency and get a offensive lineman somewhere.
Yeah, at least a swing guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Your thoughts? Was it the decline, offensive line injuries, or maybe Brees declining a bit in your opinion?
But I mean, I think every older quarterback, you need to start cutting their throws down, or at least the distance of their throws. The Saints are far more effective when he throws the ball in the low 30 range than they are when he gets into the 40s. And we saw that when he throws 40 passes or more, they have a losing record over the course of his career, and it's a pretty bad losing record. So I think as you get older, the Saints have the formula now to carry an older quarterback through those days when he feels older. I mean, you know, you see it, whether it was John Elway, Peyton Manning, at the end of those careers, even with the Patriots in this last Super Bowl, it wasn't explosive offense, but it's the ability to control the clock, make first downs when you have to, and then have a defense that can make plays. The Saints have most of those pieces in place right now.
Your thoughts on Murray coming in and replacing Ingram? Downgrade, even trade there? What do you think?
I think it's a slight downgrade.
It's a downgrade, and I would not be surprised at all if the Saints are not finished adding a running back there, because I don't think they're not gonna wait and see how it works out. They're gonna bring somebody in they feel like will compete with Murray and maybe take some. I can see 3 running backs next year.
What about Dwayne Washington, who looked pretty decent last year when he had a chance to be able to play as a physical back? You think he's ready to make the next step?
We don't know. I mean, he looked good in a couple of games. He did step it up and hit 100 yards towards the end of the season. He's a guy who can maybe take a few carries and help.
And more physical guy.
Yeah, and it is a physical guy, and he's a good sized guy. He may be the answer. We don't know, but I think they're going to try some people in Washington. Could be the answer.
Your thoughts there? I mean, do you think that was part of the thought process there? We have a guy that can be our physical back if we need it.
Well, I agree that there's probably going to be more competition. You know, running backs are easy to find. You know, not necessarily all of them will pan out, but you can certainly find guys out there to compete at the position. They do have, you know, a physical back on the roster. But again, experience is very important, and being in those situations, and that's where this team is. The learning curve is not going to be able to be steep on this. They're going to have a very difficult schedule next season, we know. So, yeah, they can't wait for somebody to develop. They've got to be able to hit the ground running.
Saints signed Malcolm Brown, defensive tackle out of Texas, was formerly a first-round draft pick of the New England Patriots. I think he started 51 of 60 games off the top of my head. He signs a 3-year, $15 million contract. What type of player is Malcolm Brown?
He's a nose guy. He's going to occupy the guards in the center. He had 186 tackles, 8.5 sacks in 4 years, which really is not bad for what he did. You know, your nose tackle, if you can get 2.5 sacks, 2 sacks a season, I mean, that's lanyard. I mean, because basically what he's doing is freeing up the linebackers, getting the tackles involved, and just trying to grab 2 or 3 offensive linemen and occupying them. And that's what he's good at. He's about 6'2", about 320. And again, he's 25 years old, 26, but he comes from a great program. And that's got to be bonus points, too, coming from the Patriots.
When you look at Brown right now, Davidson being a free agent, that's his position there. Again, it's not. You're talking. Everybody talks about Rankins and Onyemata having to be able to fill that position because of the possible suspension of Onyemata and Rankins coming off the Achilles. But he's really the nose tackle, as you mentioned.
He is the nose tackle.
It'll be Davidson and him that will be competing if Davidson comes back.
Yes, and he's not a 3-tech guy. He is. Malcolm Brown is a 1 guy. He's a nose tackle kind of person, and he's gonna occupy the gaps and stuff like that. You know, they got other guys out there. Darius Phelan from the Chargers. Corey Leggett is another guy. Malcolm Brown was somebody. Muhammad Wilkerson is another guy that's been out there. You know, you got some names and stuff, but they got to fit in the cap and they got to fit the scheme and stuff. Malcolm Brown fit what they were looking for on nose tackle, because we don't know what's going to happen with Tyler Davidson, and I don't know if he's going to be back. It's going to have to be. They'd have to luck out to get him back, right?
Well, I get the impression when you look just along the lines of what they did with Ingram and Murray, that they've gone to these players. They got a pretty good feel for what they want, and the same thing can be said for Okafor, who signed with Kansas City today. Again, that they probably figured, okay, we're going to have to move on from these guys because we don't want to pay them the price point that they were asking for. Your thoughts on Malcolm Brown?
I think it's a necessary pickup more than anything else. They needed depth at the defensive tackle position, especially because they don't have a lot of rushers. So they need as many people as they can to hold that line, give them the opportunity to stay stout against the run. The Saints don't have big linebackers, but they do have playmakers if they get shielded. So yeah, I think this is a good move. 25 years old, great age to pick up on him. And I think again with this program, the way the defense scheme works, I think he should be a very good fit.
Ansa comes in, and Mario Edwards comes in. Ziganza and Mario Edwards comes in for a visit today. Your thoughts?
Ansa's too expensive. I don't think he stays. I think he's using this visit for leverage. But the Saints don't have the money to. He wants a long deal. And he's going to want a lot of guaranteed money.
He's been injured a lot.
Yeah, he has. But you know, when you've produced double-digit sacks in this league, you want money, and that's how it's going to go. And the Saints, I don't think are really going to be able to bid what he wants.
He played 7 games last year. He's got 48 sacks. He's 29 years old. I would be surprised if the Bills don't sign him. I think that's where he's going.
Right. Because I know that was one of his Saints and Bills.
I would be surprised if he doesn't go to the Buffalo Bills.
Jared Cook came in today. Interesting prospect there because, again, his age, 31 years old, had a really good year last year with Oakland. It really didn't have a lot going there. Your thoughts on the possibility of bringing him in, especially, and I want to use it as a caveat here because it looks as though the slot receiver position is dwindling in terms of talent. So you better be able to find somebody that can work the inside for you. What do you think about Jared Cook?
Ben Watson. He is Ben Watson. It really is. He's 32 years old. Ben played his 37. I mean, he's got some gas in the tank, and you know, he's more of a receiver. He's not going to knock you on. He's not going to have a lot of pancake blocks, but he's a good receiver. He can run the seam. He can run the short stuff, and he's a guy that can get Drew Brees his respect and trust. And I can see if Jared Cook comes here, he can again follow in the footsteps of a Ben Watson, have similar success. And he's a guy that certainly can solidify the position.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, he can get the tight end position near 50 catches again. And that's what they really need out of that position. If they're down in the 30s with catches, it's just, that's a big section of the offense that's not working for them. When Drew Brees has his best success, it's because he has that other guy working the middle. And I think Cook can do that really well for the Saints.
You know, Will Lutz signs a huge contract. What was it? 5 years, $20 million, about $4 million a season, $9.2 million of that guaranteed. I mean, he turned himself into a pretty good kicker as well. But remember, he had some issues when he first got in terms of trajectory. I mean, it was Coach O'Day they brought in who really helped him kind of pull that together. Brand new special teams now in terms of the coach. First of all, congratulations to him. Your thoughts on that? But the changeover in special teams now with the coaches and losing some 3 coaches, which is kind of unprecedented to have 3 coaches on the special teams to be able to handle special teams. But with that said, the special teams went from one of the worst in the league to one of the best in the league.
Well, but you know, the kickers are quirky guys.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you got to, and they showed a lot of faith in him when he came from Georgia State, and they trusted him, and I think he repaid their trust and was money. I mean, he was a guy that you can depend on. When he lines up and ready to kick, you feel really, really good that this kick's going through. He's good 50 yards and in. He's pretty solid. And extra points, I mean, that sometimes it gets to be a calamity there, but he's been very solid, and he's been the kind of guy that when the Saints do bog down in that red zone, he can come through.
Your thoughts?
You know how important the kicker is now, especially when you need him. I mean, the Rams got 2 huge kicks to get to the Super Bowl. So if you've got somebody that you have confidence in those moments, then you retain them, because when you don't have that guy, you know, as Chicago Bears, you know, when you're a goalpost away from making it to the next round, you need somebody you have confidence in. The Saints have confidence in Will Lutz.
You can scratch defensive tackle off the list at this point. You can scratch quarterback off the list at this point. Well, running back was just, again, interchange because of the situation with Ingram moving on. Tight end, offensive tackle. Any other positions you think that they're going to have to
keep
deal
an
with?
eye, and I don't know if he would be a great fit here, but 6'3", 205, got a 45-inch vertical. Chris Conley from the Chiefs.
Okay.
He's out there. You know, but he's a name that they may look at. He's got good size and stuff, and he may be an upgrade a little bit. You got Kirkwood coming back. You got Traquan Smith, and that had a lot to do too. You had 2 rookies there that they couldn't really.
And Carr didn't really do anything.
No, and I mean the thing is that sometimes had a little bit to do with Drew Brees,
right?
Because Michael Thomas, he knows what he's doing and stuff. But when you got 2 rookies out there and they fuzzy cheek freshmen, if you will. You bring a guy in that Chris Conley's been there before with the Chiefs, and they had a good success. They had success with Mahomes. Right. That's somebody to look at.
I think that a lot of what they're doing right now is that they're hopeful that these guys, Smith and Carr and Kirkwood, will take the next step. I don't know if you can go into a season and depend on that. You don't know how much Ginn's got left in the tank. I got to believe that even if they do go out and get that tight end, they've got to get a wide receiver, right?
Right, and I think it'll probably be on the secondary market, though. Let these guys, the more expensive guys, pass on. But try to find a veteran that you can work with, a bigger guy who can, again, the big thing about Ginn was just somebody maybe who can either blow the top off or somebody who can make those catches on 3rd down, because you don't want Thomas constantly taking those hits that he's been taking. So, yeah, I think they will probably try to wait a little while. But, yeah, that position, and I still think they need to look for some edge rushers. But I think that'd probably be a draft decision.
Right. Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham back together again with Cleveland. To have 2 guys that are making almost $20 million at the wide receiver position is mind-boggling. But, again, they can do that because they're not really paying a quarterback right now. When you look at Michael Thomas, should you make that deal now? Should you try to renegotiate and give him a long-term deal now, or wait until next season and allow the price to go up? You're Mickey Loomis. What do you do?
Well, if it's Loomis, he's not going to do it now. That's never been his way. So he's going to wait and see what the market bears from Michael Thomas. And I think, again, you have to deal with the Drew Brees dead money situation.
Right.
So until they figure out what the cap is going to look like for them going into next season, they're not going to be in any rush to make a deal. They know what they can do. They know they can franchise him. They know that they can hold on to him in a number of different ways.
Right.
So they're not pressed.
Right. Your thoughts?
I got to backtrack a second. A name just jumped into my head. A rusher who's going to be out there from Denver Broncos, Shaquille Barrett, is a guy who's played behind Von Miller and he hasn't got the reps, and he's looking for a place to come, speed rush guy. Anyway, getting back to Michael Thomas, I agree with David. I think they're going to wait because they don't know. They can work things out, and if they have to franchise him, if they have to tag him as a backup, but there's no hurry to do it right now.
Right. Guys, we're going to shift gears to LSU and talk a little bit about Will Wade and the basketball team when we come back. Our guest tonight, Rene Nadeau of CrescentCitySports.com, David Grubb of CrescentCitySports.com, the Bird Whites, also we can say Sports 1280 as well. Again, our great guest tonight. My name is Eric Asher. I'm your host. We'll be right back.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. It's all Crescent City Sports tonight on our panel. David Grubb and Rene Nadeau join us on the panel and doing a great job. We just got finished talking Saints. We'll now move to Will Wade and LSU. And wow, you know, we went extensively into this on last week's show. What was on the wiretap, etc. It's been all over the place, guys. I actually was listening to Matt Moscone on the way in today, and I actually heard a cut of Will Wade speaking for the first time on this situation publicly. Everything else has really been statements that have been put out by his attorney. And in that cut, he literally says that he has had no dealings with Christian Dawkins here at LSU, that again, he's done nothing outside of what, and I'm paraphrasing here, outside of what is expected in terms of grant and aid for an athlete. So no extra payments, etc. We know that Javonte Smart has been investigated by LSU over the last week or so, was held out of the Vanderbilt game, the season finale in the SEC. His mother, I think Melinda, and also another third party that was unnamed, all have been investigated. They hope they have that investigation done by Friday, and then he will be allowed to play against Florida in the SEC tournament. It's been back and forth between LSU, Aliva, the general counsel for LSU, and also King Alexander on, again, having Will Wade come in and be able to speak to them about what transpired on that wiretap. You know, Will Wade's contention is, look, I'll come in and talk to you, but I'm not going to talk if the NCAA is on a teleconference, and that was what happened last week. Dave, I'll take you first on this one. Your thoughts on Will Wade, your thoughts on this situation, and again, well, you know, what LSU has done thus far, and how Will Wade has handled this thus far.
So just to take it from a PR perspective, I spent more than a decade working in public relations, and this has been a disaster for both sides. Will Wade is fighting his battle in the public, which is the last place he should be fighting this, because it leads to more examination. Every statement he's made, everything he's ever done becomes part of the public record now. And so nationally, he's keeping this story afloat in a time where you'd really like it to kind of quiet down and be handled behind the scenes between him, his lawyer, and LSU and their representatives. LSU messed this up by not dealing with this in October when they first became aware of this. Either they should have given him a suspension at the beginning of the season, conducted their own investigation, said we've talked to our guy, he says he's clean, we just sat him to make sure everything was good, let him go, whatever the NCAA does after that happens. And I think that's where they made their mistake. And now LSU jumps in at this stage right before the NCAA tournament, booting their coach out, putting the whole season into a question mark. Fan base is upset. The team is upset, clearly. So you've thrown this thing into chaos when they could have handled this much more professionally. I think what Will Wade has done now, by not refusing to talk to LSU, setting conditions, he's basically paving his path out of LSU. Because you can't go backwards. You can't put this genie back in the bottle. If LSU were to bring him back on after he's done these things publicly, how do you have any control over him as the basketball coach going forward?
What's your take on this entire situation?
Oh, I've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other on this. And I don't blame him for not talking, because any lawyer will tell you that. Do not speak.
Especially with the federal government involved here, right?
Especially with the federal government there and the FBI. And we had an example off the air. And I said, to you, if you're FBI is after you, example, and I ask you, you went to Mr. Ed's last week and ate. What did you have? A shrimp po' boy. Okay. I checked the records and I found out you had a dozen oysters. Well, I forgot. Well, you lied. No, you did. You told me something else. And I mean, the FBI can take the smallest thing and make it into something big and make you feel like you don't tell the truth, you lie, or you can't remember it very well. But any lawyer will tell him, don't answer those questions. So LSU, they didn't handle it. I agree with David. They didn't handle it well. It was kind of a kick the can deal in October. If they would have just addressed it maybe at that time, but they just pushed it, hopefully it wasn't going to grow into a monster, and it did. And obviously he's not going to coach in this season at all. But I'm telling you, I may be a minority. I would not be surprised if he was back next year.
Right. Now I'm hearing again from some pretty decent sources, some people that I really trust, that again they were already figuring out an exit plan for him and a buyout. It'd be interesting to see again if that happens. Now look, you could go by public opinion here based on students, based on fans, etc. Even again, some people that are in our business. I'm one that has said from the beginning, should have dealt with this in October, okay? And also, again, you knew who you were getting. You knew you were getting in bed, and with the lack of a better term, with the devil here. He's a guy that's played hard and fast with it in terms of the recruiting rules at other places. There were rumors when he was hired at LSU about this. So you knew what you were getting into when you brought him in. Again, I don't think that anybody thought he'd be on an FBI wiretap. Okay, the NCAA investigating you is much different than an FBI investigation, and from his standpoint, I understand where he's coming from in terms of having an attorney, and he'll make sure that again every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and not saying a cross word, because as you mentioned, again, you could maybe get in a situation where jail time, fines, etc., IRS, everybody else being involved in this, and you don't want to go there as a coach. I think that again the administration failed on that. I don't understand bringing in the NCAA at that point. I almost felt like it was a knee-jerk reaction to Dick Vitale and other talking heads on what happened when that wiretap came out. And look, you've read the transcript. I've read the transcript. We've all. It's very damning. No matter what, whether it's taken out of context, it's an excerpt, whatever. It's very, very damning. Your thoughts on how? Again, I think that this should have been handled in October, and now that it's not, that he should have been allowed to continue to the end of the season, because if you're going to vacate wins and championships, you're going to vacate wins and championships anyway.
Yeah.
I think what LSU's worried about is, we talk about this institutional control.
Right. And that's what the attorney said today as well, Tom Skinner.
So, if that means that the NCAA can go in and look at all facets of your athletic department. And there may be stones that LSU doesn't want unturned. I mean, every program has them.
Absolutely.
So once that comb starts going through and people can find things on their way to look for this other thing that they came in for. And I think that's what the university is trying to avoid here. You just don't want the specter of an NCAA investigation hanging over your head. But they're trying to be, for lack of a better term, a little bit pregnant here.
But aren't they coming?
Yeah, they're going to be there.
NCAA's coming anyway, right?
You put the wheels in motion. And like you said, by doing it now, all you've done is just create a more public nightmare, because you've put it at the most observed part of the season. Conference tournaments, NCAA tournament, this is when the nation is paying attention.
Right.
And now all the eyes of college basketball, and this is now bigger than a college basketball story. So all the eyes are on Baton Rouge in this, and no one will come out of this looking good. Even if there is a resolution, like his best case, if they do bring back Will Wade, or even if he's fired, no one will come out looking good. LSU will have trouble finding a new head coach who can get them back to this level that they got so quickly with Will Wade, and Will Wade will be probably cast to the nether regions of college basketball for a number of years.
Well, what's your take? Should they have just rolled with him at this point?
Oh, I'm going to tell you, in retrospect now,
Right.
it would have been a whole lot better to just let him stay where he is. And again, if you're going to vacate, victories, if you lose 26 wins or 6 more wins, it ain't going to hurt.
Right.
And just let him coach the rest of the year and keep it as quiet as possible. It'd have been better going back. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. But if they would have at last week just brought as little attention to this as possible, the investigation would have still gone on. But I don't think it had the attention it gets now. And now, I mean, the ramifications and the demonstrations about the fans. And
Right.
it is. He's right. I mean, they're talking about this now. The NCAA's March Madness, and this is one of the first things they're talking about
Right.
around the country now.
Right.
So it's negative stuff. It's brought some negativity to LSU, and I think if it had just kept in place now in retrospect, and at the time I thought he should have spoke. So a week ago, that's what I was thinking. But now looking back at it. Had he just been left alone.
But speak if the NCAA's in the room. I mean, I
Well,
could get having to go to your boss. And look, I was with everybody, okay? Your boss calls you in, you tell him no, you're either getting fired or suspended, okay? You can't do that. But I do get it from his standpoint because the federal government is involved here and also the NCAA. You don't want to come in and have the NCAA grilling you on things right then and there. And what is your attorney going to tell you? No comment. No comment.
I think he could have pushed back on the NCAA, but the problem is when you say, I want you to limit the scope of your questions. Even without the NCAA, he has to be fully open with LSU.
And supposedly he was in October, because that was one of my criticisms, Dave, is again, you should have dealt with this in October. Now, supposedly they brought him in October. He told them, look, there's nothing to worry about, okay? When all this comes out, I'm going to be exonerated. These things are being taken out of context. And look, we all know, you could drop, excerpts of a wiretap or excerpts of again, something someone says, and if you don't have the full context of what can be said, obviously it can be taken out of context. So, we'll see what happens, but it doesn't look good for Will Wade. Does Will Wade return? You think he will?
Right now, if I had to guess, I wouldn't say bet, but I would say there's a chance he's coming back next year when this is all done.
Does he return?
No.
Yeah, I think he's done. And look, I wish he would come back, and there'd be a way to come back. And it's not just about the recruiting thing. I just think he's an excellent X and O's coach, and he's a great coach again to making adjustments on the fly. A young, up and coming coach. Again, I would equate him to, again, when Nick Saban got to LSU, the type of coach he was there. You almost felt like he's the next coming of the next great coach. I will say this, though. Sean Miller, same exact situation on the wiretap in Arizona. They suspended one game. It's been swept under the rug. Bill Self, texts that we've actually read about again, making deals for players at Kansas. He's still coaching. But yet, again, this situation with LSU, which again is kind of self-inflicted by their administration, they've gone the whole different way with Will Wade.
And because of what you just said too, that's why I think now Will Wade is not Bill Self and all, but I think that because of those kind of situations, there's a chance that he is going to be back.
Right. Guys, let's shift to LSU. Well, first, before we do that, UNO taking on Lamar in the Southland Tourney. UNO really looked good down the stretch, but again, they had some injuries here. Coach Les normally has this team ready to go in March. Your thoughts on UNO as they prepared for the Southland
Lost
Tourney?
the best player, but I mean the thing is that they've had injuries and it's hurt, and they're not deep enough to really, go afford to lose any players. But Coach Lessing has done a great job, X and O's, and I mean it's a joy to watch a team play.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting
Plays
to see
good on
how,
defense.
and no disrespect to the University of New Orleans, it's going to be interesting to see how long you can hold on to him as a coach.
Absolutely. I
Right.
mean, it's a problem that UNO has had before. I mean, we're going back, Tick Price when he was successful there, Tim Floyd when he was successful there.
Right.
You're in for a short time when you have that kind of coach who can win. It's just, I agree. They just don't have in tournament time. You have to have that one guy who can get hot and carry you for a couple of games, and UNO just doesn't have that this year.
Are you surprised at the lack of success that Tulane has had in basketball under Dunleavy, and the fact that they're sticking with him and he's going to return?
They just don't want to pay him, to pay
Right.
him off. But my goodness, you can't lose any more games. I mean, you're over in the
Right, in the
conference.
conference.
I mean, you can't get any worse than that.
Right.
And I realized it was close, but it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
If you lose by 1 point or 15.
Supposedly he has a really good recruiting class coming in, and maybe that'll turn the tide here. But I am surprised with again, the deep pockets that they have with Tulane alumnus, that again, they're not maybe looking at a buyout here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's an embarrassment right now, and Tulane can't afford to have athletic embarrassments when they're trying to rebuild that program. And the basketball team has always been something that, at its peak, was something that it really brought that campus together, more so than football ever did. And it's sad to watch that program struggle as it has for the last 20 years now. We're going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's when that place is rocking, when Fogelman is really going. When that field house is going, it's a great place to watch a game, and right now it's sad.
We've talked about Will Wade. Let's talk briefly about the LSU basketball team. First of all, do you think Javonte Smart, after this investigation, plays in the SEC tournament, plays in the NCAA tournament?
Yes, I do. I think he's going to play. He's going to play on Friday.
Right.
Oh yeah, he's absolutely going to play. If he wasn't, it would already be announced.
So I asked the question to both of you: if they're going to exonerate Smart, how is Wade not back on the sidelines?
It's all perception. The players. Unless they can prove something on the players that they took, that's why they talked to Smart's mother and another associate. Unless they've got a smoking gun there, it's a lot different. But you got the coach on tape, and then you have these other things of him not coming in and those public issues now. So I think that's why you focus on the coach. The coach is always the most accountable one. You can replace him a lot easier. You don't want people to start thinking you're punishing players for things that are not necessarily their fault.
Right. How far can this team go without Will Wade?
I still think they're a second weekend tournament team if they play defense consistently. LSU is better than the sum of its parts, as we've talked about. They're not a great shooting team. They are occasionally not a great team at taking care of the basketball. But what they do is compete for 40 minutes, and they get guys into the position to just be relentless on the boards. They get a lot of offensive rebounds. They defend the glass very well, and they have guys who will hit shots at the right time. So if LSU can defend the way that they have lately, they can beat just about anybody. But they're going to have to get scoring from Naz Reid on a consistent basis. He's their only interior scorer, and there are too many games where he either misses a half or he misses an entire game with his point production.
Yeah, no doubt. Your thoughts, how far can they go?
Depending on matchup,
right,
they can get into the Elite Eight. And again, you don't know. I mean, you don't know. They've played good against good teams, the Kentuckys and the Tennessees. I know it's going to get tougher in the March Madness, but if Naz Reid has a big game and Kavell Bigby, my gosh, he's done great at LSU.
Guys, I'm of the opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, that the NCAA is going to make it very difficult on LSU. I think LSU will have to travel very far. So again, fans won't be traveling with them. I think they're going to get the toughest matchups. Okay, they're in a bracket with teams that they really don't match up with, because this is humans that are doing this now. Because the NCAA knows that every time, again, the Tigers are on TV with this situation, that the first thing that's going to come up is, again, about the situation with Will Wade, and they'd like to get them out of the tournament as quickly as possible.
The only way LSU can save this is by winning the SEC tournament. Because if you win the regular season, you win the conference tournament, that means you've had to beat Kentucky or Tennessee again. And you win that tournament. The SEC is as tough a conference at the top as any in the country. So LSU has a very serious case for a number one seed if they pull that off. And the NCAA may be able to give you a tougher region, but you'd still be a number one seed, and that's what you want to be able to control.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's head to the phone lines. Herm is in New Orleans. Herm, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Herm.
Good night, guys. I got a 3-point question about the Saints. Number one is, will the Saints draft a tight end? And will they get a chance to maybe draft Nick Brissett as a scat back? Both of those guys could come from LSU. And how about a one-year deal with Sue?
Thank you, Herm. Guys, I think tight end's got to be one of their priorities, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is going to be the pick at 62, or they try to move up to get a young tight end.
I don't know. It could be. I think that also they're going to consider a defensive lineman and also a wide receiver there.
As far as Brissett, I think he's a free agent.
Yeah.
I don't see him getting drafted. He was a good, dependable back, but he's not somebody that you have to fight for.
Right.
He'll be there.
Right. And as far as tight end goes, you think that might be in the cards as far as the draft?
if they can find one that they really like. But I mean, when you're drafting where they are at 62, I mean, you're not going to reach for a tight end.
It's a pretty decent tight end class from what I understand.
It is, and they can. And I can see the Saints making moves. I can see the Saints making moves and getting an additional draft choice or two. I really do.
I may give up for next year.
Yeah, I know, kicking down the road, but I can see that happening.
Oh no, I can't do. I cannot look. I can't see Sean Payton sitting there until 62 to make his first pick.
No.
He's just too impatient of a guy. He's going to see too many good football players.
And then you don't have anything after that.
Right.
I mean, it's just
no. I think he's going to make a splash. Look, I'm a little biased, and look, I know he went to Alabama. I think Irv Smith would be perfect in this Saints offense. Perfect in this Saints offense. Okay, if you could get in that second round and get up in the second round to get him. If he doesn't go in the first round, I think he could come in and he could be a tight end for the next 10 years.
I think he'd be gone before the Saints.
I do too as well. Thomas is in New Orleans. Thomas, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Thomas.
Yes, hello. Yes, hello. How you doing?
Doing fine.
Yes, hello. How you doing?
We're doing fine. Your question?
I wanted to know, what will LSU do without their coach being on the sidelines? How will they fare, and what is the competition going to be like?
Thank you for the phone call, guys. We've addressed that somewhat, but y'all want to add anything to what we talked about earlier?
I think, again, we talked about it, and I think they depending on the matchups, they could get in the Elite Eight.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not going to change anything. They're going to play defense. They're going to rebound. They're going to struggle at times offensively, and they're going to rely on their toughness to pull games out.
Confidence in Tony Bedford in terms of being able to continue to carry this team?
And it's a different personality.
Right.
And that's the thing is that, to me, Will Wade, and I'd said this before, was a combination of Dale Brown and John Brady. Mm-hmm. The intensity of Brady, that's the scheming, the calculation of how to make plays work, that was Brady's strength. Mm-hmm. That fire that he had, where also Dale Brown, extreme competitive fire, but the charisma and the thing to rally guys who weren't as good as maybe they should be, but as a group played better. I think Will Wade had those characteristics. I don't know if Benford does. He's going to try to do those things, but there are certain things that only Will Wade can transfer to his team. Yeah,
it's unfortunate the way this has gone down. All right, let's talk some Pelicans here. Dave, why don't you give us the latest? Because from what I understand, the group that is out there searching for general managers, they're very, very close, and maybe within the next couple of weeks, we may see some candidates that may be coming in out on Airline Drive and interviewing for the general manager or the president of basketball operations job.
Right. So the search firm has said that they will have about 5 to 10 candidates identified within the next 2 weeks. I think a lot of the folks that are front runners, you got to look at Trajan Langdon, who's assistant GM in Brooklyn. Has done a great job there. You go over to Oklahoma City and their assistant GM, and I'm sorry, his name is escaping right now, but he's also extremely wanted. Boston, Toronto, there are prospects all over the league. So I think that the Pelicans will definitely be trying to raid some established franchises. I've heard that guys like Joe Dumars have already been ruled out. Avery Johnson ruled out.
As they should have been.
And Danny Ferry is a long shot as well. So it is going to be an external person who comes in. And I think that can't be done soon enough. That has to get done as quickly as possible.
Rene, in your opinion, established NBA general manager or one of those young and up-and-coming guys that again, everybody's wowed by now?
Established, absolutely. You can't take a chance again, and this has to be the right decision, the right move, and it has to be something that you have confidence in, that the person that you hire is going to make the right moves for the future. The trade with Anthony Davis, that's going to set this organization in the right direction or wrong direction. So that is the first order at hand, to make sure that is handled properly.
And as I've said, you got to have, based on what we've seen since this team has been in New Orleans, okay, you've had 2 players that are going to be in the Hall of Fame in Chris Paul and Anthony Davis. 2 of the guys, the top 5 of their position when they were here. And you've never been able to attract free agents. So I really believe you've got to get a person that's going to be in place that understands how to cultivate talent, how to draft talent, understands talent not just in the United States but worldwide, and can grow that talent again through the draft. And then maybe one day you'll have an opportunity to maybe have free agents come to New Orleans. But I think that has to be part of the resume of anyone that comes in.
Well, you look at, there's always this talk about, small market, big market. Most markets don't attract free agents, whether they're whatever size they are. Portland doesn't get free agents. Utah doesn't get free agents. Denver doesn't get free agents. Atlanta doesn't get free agents. It just doesn't work that way because there are only so many elite players to go around.
But if you only have a superstar,
right. you may be able to bring in
right.
a second, a second level guy, a guy like a Drew Holiday, who is a top 25 player in this league, and who you already have in hand. But you look at it, you want to see somebody who can do every level of your organization. The G League team comes online, somebody's got to be able to scout, get talent from that, because to replenish this team, you're going to have to constantly find cheap young talent. Right. That's going to be financial flexibility is going to be key for this franchise over the next few years. So you need that kind of person, like I said, who's going to do a comprehensive study of the training staff on this team, because we know the medical part of this has been a question mark for years. And then even little things. I mean, Alvin Gentry's talked about a lack of cameras in the training facility. Just those little things that teams need to upgrade. Somebody who's going to pay that level of attention to detail and establish themselves as a strong voice directly between themselves and Mrs. Benson, and not allow anyone else to put a barrier between them.
Couldn't agree more. Let's shift gears for this, a few minutes that we have left. Talk about LSU spring. How are they looking?
Well, I'm going to go back. I'll say this quickly. Look at this time last year, Joe Burrow went on campus. Yes. You didn't know who your cornerback's going to be. Your offensive line was in a flux. Darius Geis had just left, so you don't know how to. Look at how it has solidified everything. Justin Jefferson was coming off a freshman year, and he is developed into a legitimate SEC wide receiver. I almost said Odell Beckham, Jamar Chase, and Terrace Marshall. Right. I mean, that's Odell Beckham and Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. That's those two guys. And they're going to be outstanding wide receivers. Trey Palmer's a guy from Kentwood. Watch him this year. Joe Burrow has really established himself. The offensive line, you got guys that. The offensive line, you got two guys that can be all SEC. Damian Lewis, the guard, can be all SEC. Cushenberry is an all SEC type center. Sadiq Charles, he's okay. Deculus has come along, and Chasen Hines, the guy to keep an eye on. Carlton Thomas, the guy they signed out of Southern Lab. You're starting to get some depth there. Darren Rosenthal is a guy that I'm interested in watching. 6'8", about 327. He went from defense to offense where he should be. And Cameron Wire is an offensive lineman. The defense, you got, that Stingley is going to start. If not the season opener, he'll start before the season's over. Kerry Vincent will be the cornerback and the cover the slot. And Fulton, yeah. You have the best cornerbacks in the SEC, if not two of the best in the whole country. And Grant Delpit is the absolute best safety in the country. He'll be a number one draft choice next year.
Pick it up where they left.
And then you look in the backfield. Clyde Edwards-Helaire did a good job last year, but most of his yards really came in 3 games. So he's going to get challenged. You already have Curry in the backfield right now. He should progress from last year. He didn't really get a lot of carries last season. I think he only had 2 carries for like 8 yards.
You think Emory comes in and starts, or do you think it's?
I don't think he'll start,
right?
but he'll get carries. Because you're looking at between Edwards-Helaire, Leonard Fournette, and then with Curry, those 3 guys are going to start off getting those carries, and you try to work in a freshman behind that group for dependability's sake. And then also, the big thing is going to be the linebackers, replacing Devin White.
Yes.
That's not an easy task. You have talent there. You always have talent at the linebacker position. But to replace a transcendent player in Devin White, not only in his ability to play, but as the leader, the unquestioned leader of not only that defense, but really the team for most of last season. And like you said, the evolution of Joe Burrow, the fact that they want to get Brennan more snaps this year and start seeing what it's going to look like after Burrow.
Right.
And then the fact that I really want to see how this offense develops, because they're going to try to get the tight end back involved in the passing game, get that spread that they wanted to implement last year. They brought in more coaching help to help. To help there. So I think there's a lot to be encouraged about at LSU for the spring.
Kaylavon Chason, that is Devin White as an outside rusher. He's going to make that kind of impact.
Beautiful. Rene, Nadeau, David Grubb, CrestCitySports.com. Thanks for being on our panel tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. on Pelican Sports Television every Friday night, 9 p.m. That's statewide, and always at ericasher.com. You can catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2 on the iHeartRadio app. That's weekdays noon to 2. You can listen live, download the podcast on the iHeartRadio app or at ericasher.com as well. Again, special thanks to our guests tonight, David Grubb, and also Rene Nadeau of CrestCitySports.com. Also the WLA production staff, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Naila Jones, Alex Chacon, and my director, William Hill. For David Grubb and Rene Nadeau, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here for another edition next week of Inside New Orleans Sports.